Okay.
Okay. There you go. It's recording.
All right. Well, hi guys. I was gonna say hi everybody. I wanted to do some introductions for me and then of course Marcy and Jacqueline as well. We have teamed up to do a webinar today and then again on Thursday, October 19th. For really everybody who is a caregiver, who's going through the caregiver process, really just needs a break, and really can see that in themselves. But on top of that, so all those things, but also if there's anybody from LinkedIn who has employees and you know a little bit of what's going on, if they're also full-time family caregivers, this is also a really good recording for you to watch, just in the fact that you know there's resources out there for your employees. So go ahead, I'll have one of you start the introductions on yourself. I just talked a lot, and then we'll come back to me and I'll introduce myself last.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. I'll start. So I'm Jackie. And I'll kind of introduce, I guess, myself, but maybe Marcy and I together too. So Marcy and I met during graduate school where we completed our PhDs in clinical psychology, and we can get more into the story, but we came together in the past year or so to create Caregiving Care. And through Caregiving Care, we offer a variety of resources and support tools to help care for the caregiver, someone that often doesn't get the care that they need because they're providing it so much. So just to back up and a little bit more background about me. So I mentioned that Marcy and I met in grad school. So I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm also a certified yoga instructor. And, the service that we offer with Caregiving Care is not a psychological service. It's not psychotherapy. It's actually explicitly distinct from that. That said, we do combine, mind body practices, as part of kind of like my yoga background and mind body expertise. We combine what we know from our training and communicating effectively in helping caregivers navigate challenging conversations or simplify complex decision making, and all sorts of things kind of under that umbrella. Obviously, there's a lot more that caregivers go through, and we want to keep learning from them so that we can best help support them with our Caregiving Care consultancy. So I'll turn it over to Marcy to say a little bit more about herself, and I'm sure I left out a ton about Caregiving Care, so we can dive more into that story too.
Yeah. Oops, I'm so sorry. My phone started ringing. So hi everyone, I'm Marcy. As Jackie said, we met in graduate school. I am also a licensed clinical psychologist. We came together to create Caregiving Care, both of us in graduate school, and we can talk a little bit more about this, kind of talked a lot about how our parents were each going through a caregiving experience, and sort of the down trickle effect even that it was having on us. And we both sort of noticed a gap in resources for caregivers to use to really get the support that they need to take care of themselves. In a period of time where you're sort of balancing and juggling so many different roles and responsibilities. So that was kind of our motivation to start Caregiving Care. Happy to go more into my background and things like that, but yeah, just that's sort of my brief introduction.
Yeah.
Hi, me again. I am Dina, and I am the founder of Compassionate Callers. I have a degree in gerontology, so I have been working with the elderly for quite a while. And I really liked what you both said about, you touched on how the caregiver process trickles down. So even though you guys may not have been the caregiver, you're feeling the effects of your parents being the caregiver. And I actually had a personal story. My own father was diagnosed with dementia and passed of it at a very young age, which means I was a lot younger, and I had two little kids. And so it's a big reason why I started Compassionate Callers, because we are a calling service. And instead of someone who's our age or older or whatever age they are, feeling that pressure to call their loved ones at all times of the day, make sure they're okay, make sure they took their medicine, drink their water, whatever the case is, we take that rollover, and I say, we let Compassionate Callers be the nag. And so when you do talk to your loved one, you can be their loved one again, or their daughter, or their son again. And so that's a big reason why I started Compassionate Callers, because I went through it as a sandwich caregiver, working full-time, being a full-time mom, wife, the whole thing. So anyways, just another resource for you guys out there that really feel what we all kind of talked about, that caregiver pressure and how it affects us all.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that, Bina, because the way you described that experience made me think of how, so as a part of Caregiving Care, like Marcy and I have been including Compassionate Callers as our list of resources that we provide to people. And what Bina just mentioned, right, is that Compassionate Callers is something that it's for the care recipient, of course, right? Calling the care recipient, but it's so much for the caregiver too, right? Like it takes off some pressure. And I think this is where our two services, well, very different in ways, complement each other really nicely and have some overlap in that we are also trying to take off some burden on the caregiver by offering them solutions that can allow them to delegate some of the tasks that are sucking up energy that they don't have or don't need to spend. And maybe it would be useful for Marcy and I to give like a little bit more detail on our services and how that looks. And we could even just kind of briefly describe like our signature package is what we call it, our signature care package. That
I would
is
love
kind
to
of
hear
our,
about it. As
yeah.
someone who was a caregiver, as I just told everybody, I would love to hear about this, and I'm sure I'll have a million questions. So yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, sounds good. So Marcy, do you want me to start or do you want to start?
I can start.
Start it.
All right, so yeah, so basically the way that the process works for the signature care package is that we have the client fill out an intake form in which we get a little bit of background information about who they're caring for, their relationships, sort of their responsibilities as a caregiver and more generally. And then we have them identify different areas where they feel like they could use a little bit of help, either in learning more about, let's say, their care recipient's condition, or talking about, I think Jackie mentioned this earlier, simplifying complex decision making, or discussing, what are strategies to build a care team, or what's effective communication strategies, like when you're interacting with many different people in a care team, things like that. And so they can identify kind of areas that they're interested in learning more about. We then each meet with them one-on-one for 30 minutes. So they have a meeting with Jackie and a meeting with me, and we kind of divide and conquer. So the concept is that it's kind of like two for the price of one, in a sense. You're kind of getting both of our expertise, and we complement each other in a lot of ways. As Jackie said, a lot of her expertise is in the connection between mind, body. And for me, I have a background in neuropsychology and cognitive assessment. So, have a lot of knowledge about how thinking abilities change over the lifespan, stuff like that. So anyway, we each meet with the person for a half an hour to gather more information from them, and to sort of see what have they been doing that hasn't worked, what have they been doing that has worked, and where sort of our goal is to identify areas that they're feeling stuck and then move toward helping them figure out a path forward. And the way we do that is I'll turn it over to Jackie to sort of take over and explain that portion of it.
Sure. So Marcy and I get together after those 2 one-to-one sessions, and we come up with what we've called a caregiver action plan. And the caregiver action plan is a document, it's a tangible that we provide to the caregiver clients. But it's really so much more impactful than a document, because what goes into it, in addition to summarizing what we've talked about in our conversation and like their roadblocks and areas of focus that they want to kind of turn their attention to, is also the practical tools that are within our wheelhouse and expertise. So for example, that might mean a client, I'll actually give an example that has come up. So we've had a caregiver client who was so stressed out and overwhelmed by these repetitive conversations they had to have with updating a family member, right? And, additionally, conversations that are constantly about the care recipient, like, hey, how is so-and-so doing? How is so, and over and over and over again, right? And so exhausting, right? Totally draining. And like, this is usually like at the most inopportune times of the day, right? Like maybe you're already totally drained and you have no battery life left. And so there you are. And so what we did was we talked to her about this, and we came up with a script. So we made her, based on the specifics that she was struggling with here, a script that was both practical and aligned with how she wanted to be in the interaction. So how she wanted to be in the interaction was still kind and warm and her genuine self, but she wanted to find a way to have boundaries in the communication so that she could say, okay, I can respond to this person, but I can have the conversation be short. I can be empowered in the conversation. I can redirect in the conversation. And we provided that in a physical document. We also provided that in like a conversation about how maybe you would use this document. So we made a script for somebody as an example. The other thing that comes up and has come up so far with everybody is some type of video recording. So we'll make them kind of like almost like a VIP playlist tailored just for them based on what they need. And by playlist, I don't mean like music. I mean, like, I will make yoga recordings, for example. So if somebody's like, okay, I am not going to do a full practice, that's an hour. I don't have time to go, from here to here or even make a class, but I need to do something to move my body. And I want it to be something that I can, kind of be mindful in, right? Like kind of that mind body connection, that work around that. And so I'll make maybe a 20-minute video. If they say that they're willing to do something for 20 minutes, that's how long I'll make it. Like, I'm not going to make it something that they're not going to use, right? So something practical. So we'll give people recordings, scripts. We'll make calendars for people if that's one of the administrative tasks that they are struggling with caregiving, right? So I don't know, Bina, if that ever came up in
I'm curious what you would put in yours, because I get where you're going, but I am curious, what would your calendar entail?
That really depends on what is going on with that individual. So like, if you told us like, here is like this repetitive calendar that I have to make and it changes in these ways, or it gets really complicated, or I'm balancing like my work schedule, my personal schedule, and the care recipient schedule, like, make this make sense for me, that would be what you would tell us, and we would do that. And then we would share it with you and we could kind of like tweak it so it makes sense.
You guys, that's wonderful. That is a wonderful thing you do.
Sort of like 100% like individualized and customizable. That's kind of what we are aiming to be, is an individualized support team for the caregiver.
I love it. When you said, Jackie, that you'll do yoga videos, the first thing, I don't know why I thought of too, is I'm sure you'll do like, if they want meditation, like they just cannot real,
yeah. So there was one person that I made like 3 few-minute videos. My intention was to do 3-minute videos, but of course I like started rambling a little bit in the video, and then was
they
like,
probably
okay,
liked it, honestly.
But it's because it's such a like special and unique experience. Like, I'm making it for that individual, and that's really special. Like, that would make me feel really special if somebody was like, hey, I made this just for you, and it's based on what you told me is working and not working, right? And so we I think like that's what Marcy and I get really excited about, is like making everything special for someone. We want them to feel special. They probably feel like usually the least special person in the room.
Absolutely. Oh my God. The service you ladies provide. I mean, I unfortunately didn't have this service when I was going through it, but you're right. It is something where you are unfortunately so low on the totem pole, like finding time, like even what you said made so much sense, because I would be with my dad at his memory care facility. I'd miss so many workouts, you know, you don't want to miss them, but you also then don't want to miss your workout. It's such a fine line.
Yeah, so figuring out how to balance those seemingly conflicting priorities, and what we're hoping to do is sort of help people identify like what priorities matter and how they can work to juggle those in a way that like feels meaningful and feels in line with what matters to them and what's important to them. And just circling back to the caregiver action plan that I think Jackie was discussing. So that's sort of this document that has all of these resources. And so we'll, for example, in a focus area that we're talking about giving recommendations, we might say, you know, a meditation could be useful to help with whatever it is. And then we literally provide that meditation. So
wow.
that you don't have to go like searching for it. It's like an all included, like, this is what we think could be like something that you try, and literally you can try it the minute you get off the feedback with us.
I feel like you guys are literally a one-stop service. Like you just nailed it on the head. Like you're like, yeah, meditate. That's really good self-care. But no, here is the meditation to do. Like that is the next step that I think a lot of people are missing. And you guys provide that for them.
Yeah, so that's what we're hoping. And then, you know, we go through it all with them in a feedback session. And then in our signature package, we also do an additional 45-minute one-on-one with either me or Jackie.
Okay.
To sort of, and the client can kind of use that however they want. We can kind of go deeper into a certain topic. We could troubleshoot something that's like acutely going on. They could use it sort of as a check-in like a month later. It's really flexible, but just sort of another opportunity to touch base with us.
Do they ever get like, oh my God, who do I choose?
Flip a coin, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We do have an option just like as a separate add-on, because we have some like add-in options for the services that we're offering so far, and that would be like a 2-to-1 session where we would spend like an hour, but you'd get both of us for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's sort of our signature package. We have a couple other packages that we're offering and some add-ons too, and we'll put the our website link in the show notes. I was wondering though, Bina, could you talk a little bit about some of the packages that you're offering? Because I know that there are a couple different like levels of service that you provide, right?
Yeah. I know I like keep saying it, but you guys are a wonderful service. So thank you for what you're doing, because people need it. So Compassionate Callers, like I mentioned earlier, is a calling service, and we're able to call anyone, literally any age. And I'll get into that later, but in any location, because we're not in person, it's all over the phone, up to 5 times a day, 7 days a week. So no matter the package you choose, you still get those up to 5 phone calls, 7 days a week. The difference is we have a classic package, and that's a 5-minute call. You get a free assessment, and that's really to determine, you know, when should the call be? Why is the call happening? What prompts do we need to make sure we hit on each call? And then every client will have that free assessment as well as an emergency protocol, and so during that assessment, we discover that too, like, you know, God forbid your loved one doesn't pick up. Who do I call? Who is that person? Is it 911? Is it non-emergency? You know, we'll go over all that. Our second package, the minutes go up to 7 minutes per call. And on top of that, we send a monthly activity kit to the person. And it's a great kit. I don't need to boast because I'm actually using a third party, but they have done a wonderful job. And it's paint by numbers, puzzles, every single game they send large print instructions. So, you're not getting it and the person's reading these small instructions. They have thought of everything. And it's just a nice way to keep your loved one busy. So, they actually have something to do. And then, of course, to talk about. It's a nice talking point. And then the last package, you get all of that, plus up to 10 minutes per call. And then like grocery delivery, not in person. It's mostly Instacart. But if you're a working person, you don't have time to go to the grocery store to do your own grocery shopping as top of your loved one's grocery shopping. Give me the list or give Compassionate Callers the list and we'll have it delivered to their front door. I say, as long as you can get it, as long as anything you need, it can be delivered to the front door and your loved one can physically move it, like it's not too heavy for them, I can get it delivered to them. Again, not in person, but like Instacart or Amazon, whatever the case is. So those are the 3 packages. And just like you guys, it's very personalized, which I think is really important. I think that's kind of where this whole field we're in is going to, because everyone is so different. And I really like that, the call for one person could be at 7 a.m. for medicine. And then I have another client who could be at 7:30 just to make sure they got up for the day and, wanted to talk about what they're going to do for the day.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
those sounds like great offerings, and like just taking some of those what seem like small tasks on the surface, but offloading them, the amount of like mental and emotional energy that frees up for the caregiver, I'm sure is really, really meaningful.
I always say ignorance is bliss, because if you don't hear from Compassionate Callers throughout the day, everything's good. just
Yeah.
keep on keeping on, keep on doing what you're doing, and know that we've been calling your loved ones.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you have such a great background for that work. Even just like hearing you say like the thoughtfulness about like having an emergency protocol, right? Things like that. I mean, I would feel, and I do feel very confident in, referring somebody to you because of all of those things, like because of your background. I also think it's cool for your service that could be helpful regardless of if the care recipient has like in-home care or not, right? Like
Yes.
I was thinking back to the different stages of when my mom was caregiving for my grandma, and a lot of different iterations of that experience, the caregiving experience there. And my grandma lived to 99. So, that's a long time.
God bless her. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was thinking about how like at a time she was living independently, or like the siblings would take turns staying there. And then at a time there was somebody who was staying there, taking shifts, but like a home aid care, right? Like having different aides there. And having, again, right, like there's still this gap, like needing somebody to get the groceries, right? Like who's picking up that stuff? And answer, my mom was
Right,
in this case, right? But like how
Completely.
nice to have even just some of these things that seem small, but they're so necessary, right? And like I hate figuring out what I'm gonna eat for dinner. Like that's something that stresses me out. Like I hate going to the grocery store, right? Let alone doing it for somebody else. So the fact that someone can just say, hey, like I can get this off my plate and get these other benefits, that's really cool.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because the home care thing is so important. I always tell people we're such a compliment to home care. Home care is wonderful. It is a wonderful and needed service. It's extremely expensive. I'm not sure nationwide, but here in Scottsdale, we're at about $42 an hour with a 12-hour minimum per week. And listen, it adds up quick, but if you can do it, great. But if you can only do the minimum per week, we come in as an affordable option and make those calls the days the caregiver can't be there, or even the days the caregiver is there, but they leave at noon or whatever the case is. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because home care and Compassion Callers works very well together for that reason alone, is, just having someone still talk to your loved one, but keeping costs low while you can.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It seems like sort of a common theme for, you know, all of us, which I think is why we were all drawn to each other and are doing this, is sort of this idea of like and hope to ease the caregiver's burden, whether or not it's directly offering services that affect the care recipient or it's supporting the caregiver themselves, which down the line ultimately impacts the care recipient as well, and you know, is important for the caregiver. The caregiver is a human too.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited that we're all sort of joining forces and doing this, and I hope that people will join us on Thursday the 19th. At what time are we doing it? I think it's a
So I'm
lunchtime
in
situation.
Pacific, so I have mine down for 11 a.m. So Arizona, for those who are listening, Arizona's 11 a.m.
11
And
a.m. Arizona.
one
What is
1
it?
p.m. Central Standard Time. We're
And
all
2
different.
p.m. Eastern. We are all over the country,
Yes.
people.
Love it. I like that sign off for us for anything we do in the future. We each like name our time zone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
We
yeah,
have
I think
to.
yeah, we do. But yeah, that'll be good. So we can kind of put a little summary of this, and the recording will be available to people. We'll put our website in there so people can check us out there, and Instagram, and obviously same with Compassionate Callers. And yeah, we'll look forward to talking more about things soon.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you.
everyone.